So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here today. Both Bradley and Leah managed to actually simplify my presentation because everything related to bias, to robotics, have been already dealt with. And on my side, I'm slightly a little bit biased already. Okay, thank God I'm not a robot. But I graduated from OPFL. I took my first artificial intelligence class here. So that's my first bias. Second bias, because I'm also working for cybersecurity. So red team, blue team. I also quite deploy a number of training sessions to customers, and that's also one of the reasons why Ria invited me actually here, because we were helping the Red Cross Federation to train non-technical people about how to interpret red team attacks and how, as a blue team, you need to defend it. So nothing to do with the technical aspect, but more from the governance side. On my side, so I work in cybersecurity. I work in artificial intelligence, also for a company called ImmuniWeb that uses AI and machine learning to detect and to prevent cybersecurity issues, and also to scan through various websites. And the third role, or the fourth role, working also in the blockchain industry. So the reason why I call today's presentation about Entrust humans in the world of artificial intelligence is the fact that in the paradigm of AI, we talked about robot, we talked about machine learning, we talked about programming. But the human aspect is often left aside. I think most of the people here are technical people. The sessions that I've attended so far are highly technical, which is great. And luckily enough, they are being presented by humans. Otherwise, you won't be here today. I won't be here today either. Think about it. Think about singularity. 2051, let's say, would you prefer to be having a robot in front of you presenting, or still a human being? Would I prefer to have, as an audience, a robot, or still a human being? That makes a difference. And that's the reason why I hope, we still need to entrust humans in this world of AI. So by giving examples, who knows what this is? Right. Yeah, so that's actually a painting that has been sold about more or less $500,000 in the auction last year, or about 2 years ago. So who painted it? Well, Edmond de Bellamy. That's actually his code name. But the actual name is this. It's an algorithm. So you have actually both sides to design actually the algorithm. So it was trained using data models of something like 15,000 different pictures, 15,000 different paintings in the Middle Age, between, I think, 16th century and the 18th century. So when Leah was talking about bias, about data sets, the data sets of those 15,000 pictures, paintings, have been pre-selected by humans into the model, and has been trained to perform actually this painting. Some rich person actually decided to buy it. Do we have a trust issue? No. Probably not, because that person actually trusted the fact that it has been created by AI. He didn't really think about the model itself had been pre-selected by humans. So for me, my personal opinion, you may be actually countering me, but it hasn't been totally selected, designed by AI. It has been painted, but using data model that has been selected by humans. So the importance of humans still here. It's not a machine that went through all the tons of encyclopedia, through, I don't know, tons and tons of trillions of pictures on the internet, and then to design it. No, it has been pre-selected. So those 15,000 models have been selected by humans. You all know what's this, right? HAL, from 2001, Space Odyssey. So human factor is one aspect, the core one. Legal framework, compliance, regulations, technical issues. You all geeks here, so I hope you're going to solve the technical issues. Economical challenges. And the last one, geopolitical strategies. Nowadays, all those aspects actually form a system, an ecosystem that we, luckily humans, needs to address. Are the AI going to address the legal framework? At this stage, probably not. Maybe in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, we don't know. Geopolitical strategies, are the AI going to define the new strategy? Obviously, humans are using machine learning and AI to define new strategies. What about the economical challenges? I mean, we've used artificial intelligence or technical computers to define like stock exchange, to actually rate, to do statistical models. But who's deciding? Finally, the human is still deciding. Some of the figures that you are pretty most familiar with back from September 2019, according to Forbes, 75 out of 176 countries are using AI for surveillance, smart cities. You've probably seen some of the sessions already. Facial recognition, smart policing, and there's a number of companies here. 57% of the tech companies estimate technology advance will not displace workers. Thank God, we are still human. We still have a working place to go. We are not going to be replaced by robot. We are going to be complemented by robot. 17% of the global 500, they use AI and machine learning to deploy robotic process automation. And there's a 670% investment increase into robotics, as Bradley was explaining how robotics can help humans. $14 trillion value-added increase using AI, 250 billions automobile business opportunities, and then robotics and drones expenses in 2021. I mean, if you look at the picture, facial recognition is everywhere now. Whether you want it or you don't want it, it's everywhere. I mean, whether you go across the border, you go, I mean, even in the auditorium, all the different public locations, there are cameras everywhere. Then it's how people are using or how machines are using the pictures, whether you have given the consent. Well, obviously you have because they're filming you anyway. You're using the mobile phone to be recognized, to be authenticated on your phone. Obviously, you've given consent. How the pictures are being dealt by machines, by humans at the end of the chain, we never know. You probably also know the picture, the small picture from the bottom. Who knows it? A little bit. I mean, that's the movie from what's called Angel Has Fallen, from the American president was attacked. And it was actually a drone attack. I mean, the movie, I think, came last year. And it's a very nice movie. And if you think about the drones attack, now the drones attacks are everywhere. So the positive things about drone. This one, you probably have seen it. I'm not going to show the entire movie, but that was actually done in China, a light show of drones. Thousands and thousands of drones just to actually perform a light show. So it's good for the vision, it's great for technology. Do people have trust issues? Obviously, they've tested it. They did integration test, they did actually simulation, and they've launched it. Did it any accident? I don't know, probably there has been some accident, but if the program is well designed enough, it will show very good scene. So that's the advantage of having drones nowadays. People like it, it's great. So you can watch on YouTube, I mean, for the rest of the movie. There are many, many shows. Sorry. Now the next one. This one. You probably have seen it. Back 2017 or 17
it
or 18.
It allows you to separate the bad guys from the good.
The slaughter bot.
It's a
Who knows
big
this?
deal. But we have something
quite maybe
much bigger.
A quarter or a fifth of the people. I mean, that's actually just a movie. But think about it. It was designed.
Your kids probably have one of these, right?
2 years ago, two and a half. Yeah, 3 years
quite.
ago, almost 3 years ago. I mean,
the
drone can be used, and if you've seen actually
that
all those attacks nowadays are
AI.
happening in the Middle East, actually using drones.
Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition.
Who has participated to some of the drone Formula One races? Who has seen actually on the side of the EPFL 2 years in a row?
This is how it works.
Yeah. So it's great. It's fascinating. But think about how it can also cause damage. If it's totally automated, facial recognition, bullet, target, done. You don't need a human intervention behind it.
Penetrate the skull and destroy
So technology is great.
They used to say guns don't kill people. People do.
Yes. So guns don't kill people. People do. Because it has been programmed, it has been hacked, maybe, to actually destroy a person according to facial recognition. So all those technology are great. But how do we empower a human to decide what's good or what's not good? I mean, the video goes on and with a lot of saying that, okay, those are the bad guys, so those are the bad guys that are going to be killed. So the use cases nowadays that are happening, I mean, everyone is using personal assistants, autonomous car. We had actually a session about autonomous cars, security surveillance to fight crime. Bank fraud detection, credit card. Think about it. Nowadays, how long does it take for a bank actually to intercept actually a potential fake transaction? Roughly 40 to 60 milliseconds. Is there a human being behind it to do it? No, it's being programmed. I mean, they are going to be able to get all the different data, statistical sampling, in order to detect, okay, the person has actually made a transaction, maybe in Southeast Asia. He's flown there, and then suddenly, actually, he's making a transaction 1 or 2,000 kilometers away from it. That doesn't match, and obviously the credit card company will intercept it and will block it. Now this is already working. For a lot of businesses, this is working. Bots. Agriculture, augmented health diagnostic. I'm going to go through some of the examples. Who knows who this is? Anyone? You've heard of Xiao Ice from Microsoft? A chatbot. Xiao Ice was designed about a year and a half ago by Microsoft in order to interact with people. The advantage of Xiao Ice was actually the machine was not able to detect whether it's actually a machine or a human behind, because it was really interacting with the human. It was actually talking in Chinese, but talking with actually another individual. So it was using feelings. It was using the context. It was actually having this sixth sense that was implemented into Xiao Ice. Xiao Ice nowadays is interacting with 120 million monthly active users, a total of 660 million online users. It has interacted, created 30 billion of conversations, 450 million third-party Internet of Things devices, 900 million content viewers, 60 TV and radio programs. Do people trust it? Well, people are using it. They know it's a robot, but they are interacting with it. One of the advantages of, I'll say, Asia, and that's also probably one of the reasons why Ria asked me to intervene, is that Asia is governed by, well, the government. Is there privacy? There's a sense of what they define as privacy. And they actually launching a lot of innovative ideas. Microsoft is launching innovative ideas over there, is able to test it. They entrust people to test it. They're using real cases to test it. People are buying into that. Do they know what's the impact? In a sense, probably yes, probably no. What they definitely know is that the government is always behind it. The government may be misusing it. And how they're misusing it is actually they have the credit score. Everyone is familiar with the Chinese credit score, right? So, credit score, how is it done? You know, I mean, in China, there's something like 400 million of cameras. Think about a 1.2 billion population. So one camera for roughly four person. That's a lot. And obviously the camera is able to monitor like 20, 30, or 50 people at the same time. If you look at some of the camera, I mean, I was naming some of the companies there, but look at some of the companies there. They have like camera with 60 different lenses. Like it's even better than the 360 camera that we use, and able to track down 60 different people at the same time to be able to actually detect and put a score. I mean, everyone has a tag roughly. When you walk on the street, you are being live monitored. People know it. Even tourists. Whenever you enter China, okay, it's written in Chinese, but I think I hope there's an English translation around it, is that, okay, everything you do, everything you eat, everywhere you go, I mean, it's the government actually has the right to monitor. I mean, if you don't accept, usually you're sent back to where you came from. But if you go in, I mean, that's how it works. And there was a journalist from, I think it was either CNN or CNBC, he tested it. He tested actually the efficiency of the surveillance. What he did, by crossing the border, they manipulated a little bit by entering some things like he didn't pay one fine, he's a bad consumer or bad behavior, etc. Within 7 minutes, he was arrested in the middle of the crossing by people. Because all those cameras are monitoring his displacement, his moving, and interpreting. Luckily, it wasn't a robot who went to him. It's actually a human being, human police that receive an indication, say, oh, this person is a suspect, this person has a bad credit score, he's a tourist, he has been fined this and that. They're using it. The advantage of it is that it reduces also petty crime. It reduces the level of criminals. The disadvantage, it creates social barriers. Why do you want to hang out with people who has a lower credit score? That's getting difficult. So obviously, I mean, human rights, not going to talk about that aspect. But it helps. I mean, there are like people who have been arrested in a stadium within 20 minutes because of a person who was actually searched for not paying some fine or his duties, was being arrested by Chinese people. And also in the airport or in public areas, the police are equipped also with like Google Glass, similar to Google Glass or a version 4.0 of Google Glasses that allows you to look, say, oh, okay, I'm looking. Okay, there's David, all right. There's Leah, there's, okay, I'm not having one, but just think about it. It's working. The number of cameras I was mentioning, 218, 1 per 4, and it's just increasing. The number of installed cameras as well. I mean, the Americas, 168 million. In China, it's expected next year to go beyond the half a billion. It's a lot. Is it helpful? Who's managing it, right? That's the question. Who's designing? Leah was talking about the algorithm. Is it already biased? Not going to go into the aspect of war between East and West, but obviously the algorithm has been coded by humans. How did the humans code the algorithm in order to make sure that it's not biased? That's a difficult task. If we go and implement an ethics or trust at the source, maybe it's going to work. I always say maybe because there's always a bad guy behind it. As I was mentioning, everyone is tagged. For the purpose of the picture, I anonymized it, although it's publicly available. Anyway, and the system is called Skynet. Terminator, but Skynet is a company in China that is helping the local law enforcement to do it. It's working, and law enforcement are paying them. It's governed by the government. It's subsidized by the government, but at least it's working. There are also heat cameras. I mean, everything combined. So what's the impact on human? Now, on the Western side, I mean, you've heard probably earlier this month about Clearview AI. used in the US, used by, they were overstating the effectiveness of its product by saying that, okay, well, they are using real data, they are publishing it, and actually they didn't get the consent. So it's creating actually a lot of disruption. Also, the London police, they have deployed controversial facial recognition cameras. This is only dated a few days ago. So it's not only happening on the other side of, on the Far East, but it's also happening on this side. Social credit. That's in China. People are proud actually to show their social credit. So that's a cultural difference. Why? They have no choice but to trust the government, but they're showing it to be able to be accepted by different social levels. So it's widely common. Would you see that actually in the streets of the US or here? Quite difficult. Maybe it's coming, but I'd rather not go around say, look, I'm 900. Oh, by the way, they are given a 1,000 credit score by default. And then if you don't pay a fine, you get subtracted 100. If you, for example, if you are a whistleblower, suddenly it gets higher, you get credited. If you're saying, oh, my neighbor, he didn't pay, he crossed on the red light, yeah, then you're giving maybe a 200 positive points. But that's how it's working. Unfortunately or fortunately, I mean, that's subject to interpretation. That's actually one example of a credit score with different, actually, the diagram about in which aspect you are failing or which aspect you are good at. So now a total change, a different use case. Harvesting. We were talking about harvesting data from public, harvesting data from citizen, credit score, now harvesting in agriculture. This is a robot that has been developed by Panasonic to do what? To harvest tomatoes. The good advantage of that is that the human will take 2 to 3 seconds, whereas the robot will take 3 times or 4 times more. However, the human, when he does this work, it's going to take maximum 4 hours until he gets tired. The robot can carry on 10 hours or through the night. It only needs electricity. Will be always efficient, whereas actually human being will rest. So the human will be aided, will be helped by AI to do a certain task. To detect whether the fruit is ripe or not. That's where we're talking about bias. That's why we talk about model, data set. The human will need to take it, touch it, feel it, smell it. We'll use manual. The robot will use actually facial recognition, what they call facial fruital or fruit recognition. But we'll use a 3D dimensional model to be able to test it. And they're pretty good at it. So it's still under development, but think about all the different possibilities. Grapes, those are the example of tomatoes, but think about all the other fruits. It's going to be the same. It's only a matter of time until we human, entrust probably those machines to be able to collect it. Is it going to change our lifestyle? Not necessarily our work, because we as human will be able to fine-tune the robot. This is our responsibility. We are accountable for that, to fine-tune those robots in order to make sure that the work is done properly. Another case about health. I know there's another track about health, but there's an international evaluation of an AI system for breast cancer screening. Now I'm going to go into the details, but for breast cancer screening, there's I think something like 2,000 or 3,000 US and 3,000 US and 25,000 women. They took the pictures. They took the pictures and then injected into the system to train the model in order to detect it. And guess what? The results actually are astonishing. And even the doctors, because the doctors had all the necessary historical data of those humans, of those like patients, they know the historical background. So they are able to detect maybe a little bit based on their historical background. But the AI system didn't have all that. It was only based on pictures. And the results was actually very high. So that's only one example among others. So this is going to help us. Humans are going to be assisted by AI in order to make prediction, in order to make it better. But at the end of the day, it's still the human who is going to decide whether or not it's positive, or we need to make a decision about the treatment. So finally, so what do we want to do? We need to empower and entrust human. We as human are still here to govern what AI should do. One very important thing about ethics, and that's one example I want to mention, maybe about the autonomous cars. Think about the autonomous cars that has a collection of everything, really everything. Your credit score, your insurance policy, your medical insurance, your death insurance, everything. Will the autonomous car be able to calculate your liability in case you cause an accident to a person? That's one example. It's a little bit dramatic, but think about an autonomous car. You're driving an autonomous car, and suddenly there's a truck. You're going to hit the truck. And no matter what, the truck is carrying, I don't know, steel bars. The steel bars are going towards your car. Left, right. As a human, you probably don't have the time to decide what to do. You have on the right side, you think, okay, there's a mom with a kid on a stroller walking. Left side is still empty. By the time the car decides, well, he's able to see actually a little bit further behind the car, there's an old man coming by. What choice does the car make? To be in front of the truck, to decide what, right or left? If the car has also an information, say, oh, that's actually your, I don't know, your spouse and your kid. But if the car also has the idea, say, oh, by the way, you are filing already a divorce with your wife and your kid. Oh, by the way, the left side, that's actually your parent. But he's actually a last stage cancer. So he's actually living, and he's living, actually his death actually certificate actually entitled you, let's say 2 million. How are you going to decide? How is the car going to decide? It's a little bit dramatic, but think about it. Will you leave the car to decide it? Maybe as a driver, I was saying, God, no. I'm going to try to hide underneath the, I don't know, the steering wheel in order just to be able to avoid it. Or I'm going to just be able to want to preserve. I don't have the time to think, but how will the car think? Are we going to be able to program that into the car, into the artificial intelligence? Maybe one day, maybe after 2051, where singularity will come. But what I want to mention is that the future of ecosystem is not human versus technology, but it's actually human and technology. We are still on top of our decision what we want to do with the robot, with the AI. We need to ensure transparency, accountability, and legitimacy. And with all that, thank you very much for your attention. And if you want to actually link into me, I mean, you can scan this, but just probably add a note. Otherwise, I don't have any AI to find who you are. Thank you.